Hi, I'm Mara Lathrop, and welcome to the 13th Annual Port Townsend Film Festival, Interviews at Undertown. I'm being joined by Colby Pouchet, a student at Chimacum High School, and we're going to be interviewing Andrew Burke about Otter 501. So you live here, Andrew.
I do.
What's it like to attend the Port Townsend Film Festival when you are a denizen of Port Townsend?
It's great. I volunteered last year.
Yeah.
And so I'm familiar with the film festival, and I know how great it is from that side. But this is kind of like another level of great of being involved, and it's just
free food, right?
fabulous. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's really why we made the film. Is the free food. But yeah, it's awesome. You know, as a filmmaker, I've gotten to meet more filmmakers, which has just been great. As a volunteer, you're racing around a lot, and sometimes you can't, catch a breath, except down here where you get to meet everyone, which is cool. But so this time I've made some friends
Awesome.
who are filmmakers who've come into town.
Well, Colby and several other students from the Chimacum High School media class have been working on the Interviews at Undertown project with us. And so I'm going to turn this interview over to Colby now, and he's
Awesome.
got some questions for you.
Great.
So can you tell us a little bit about Otter 501?
Okay, a little bit about Otter 501. It's technically a documentary film, feature film, and it follows the story of an actual baby sea otter, an actual otter who was actually named Otter 501. And I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but the name is actually 501 is the 501st sea otter, baby sea otter, that has come in to a special sea otter recovery program and been cared for and re-released into the wild. So that's where the name comes from. And there's a human star too. It's kind of, there was like March of the Penguins, which is all penguins, and this is sea otters, but there's a human person in it too, not just animals, and that's Katie. Katie, who is someone who is a trained zoologist, not an actress, was snagged for the movie, and the movie's kind of based around her and her real story. She lived in Wisconsin and moved to California, and fell in love with sea otters and helped work with sea otters, and so she really did live in Monterey and that whole thing. There's a little bit of narrative element to the film.
That's one of the really interesting things about this documentary is that the line between journalism and entertainment is a little blurry here, isn't it?
Yeah. It's kind of in the same line as maybe a Werner Herzog film,
Right.
That kind of blends true documentary and blends a little bit of narrative, a little bit of massaging of the story to then kind of create this greater sense of what it was really like, what really happened. So yeah, it's interesting. It's documentary, I think, is one of the more malleable forms of filmmaking.
Why do you say that?
Well, I say that because everyone really has their own perspective and their opinions, and some people think that documentary is just like each side gets its own say and everything, but there's like PBS, the POV, point of view documentaries, and there's movement-oriented documentaries that really like try and push people to act. There's a lot of documentaries in the film festival like that. So there's kind of subgenres. There are different genres of documentary. So that's why I think it's like that.
There's a lot of different territory you can cover.
Yeah.
Colby.
Oh,
Right.
So you were the cameraman for the film. Is there any other hats that you wore while making the film?
I wasn't the main cameraman, but I did film some of the natural history footage. So the very first baby sea otter that you see in the movie, I'll claim that as my footage. And the point of view, the GoPro camera, probably familiar with those, little cameras. I did the mounting to the surfboards and the kayaks and stuff. That was pretty awesome. My main role was an editor, actually. So I went through 14,000 shots.
Wow.
And yeah, by the time that I even got there, they had over 200 hours of sea otter footage to comb through. So it's a big task. Yeah, it was just kind of
And how long
responsible
did
for
it take,
organizing it.
how long does it take to go through 200 hours of otter footage?
Well, they're pretty cute, so you have to like, you know, rewind and play back
Yeah,
the
they
same
are pretty
footage a couple
cute.
times.
Yeah.
But yeah, kind of as a general rule of thumb in filmmaking, as an editor, you pretty much see every piece of footage 5 times throughout the process.
That would be 1,000 hours, because I just did my head math.
Yeah.
So you
of
spent
sea otter
1,000 hours looking at sea otters.
Yeah,
You
and that-
pretty much done with them now, or you want more?
No, I could do another 1,000. No, no, they're really cool. I think, you know, everyone that was on the team, you know, it was a big effort. There were probably a dozen people at any one time working on the film. You know, everyone was a sea otter enthusiast at one level or another, and everyone was an ocean enthusiast and a film enthusiast. So,
How did you get involved in the project? How did that happen?
how did I get involved? A friend told me about the project, and they had this kind of you know, open call for you know, people to kind of write in or submit their resume and that sort of thing. And so that's what I did, and I had good references, and I had just had a couple of films in a film festival about 5 or 6 months before that that were ocean oriented. So you know, it was a good like lead in, had some momentum, and was interested in ocean stories. Yeah.
So as the editor of the film, what parts of the film that you saw while you're editing would you have liked to really have had in there that you would have liked to have seen in the movie?
Let's see. That's a good question. So obviously with like hundreds of hours of sea otter footage, you know, narrowing it down to just over an hour, there's a lot that gets left out. Man, we had so much just beautiful, you know, sea otter footage. They're, you know, playing, jumping around, and there's a nice scene with them like playing around with each other and stuff. But I think that you know, that was my favorite part. So I could just watch a whole movie with sea otters playing with each other, I guess.
So what are some of the extra features on the DVD?
Oh, geez, I don't even know.
See, we need some of that now.
Yeah, that would be cool. I did some of the stop motion animation for the film.
Could you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. It was, we had these small scenes that were like historical scenes, trying to like make the history fun. And so we kind of set this up to be kind of a rough stop motion, almost like the main character had put it together on her desk. And so we used an iPad in one scene, and it's actually a technique called still motion, which is like stop motion with people, and so it's kind of this da-da-da-da-da, and her hands are moving and stuff, kind of to make it rough a little on purpose. But yeah, we had this map, and we had Chris and Christine, who were kind of an art department of sorts that were, you know, going through like historic maps. Which one should we choose? And then we found one, but it didn't have much color, and so we like watercolored it and like soaked it with stuff and like made it look kind of older, and we lit it kind of like window light coming in and that sort of thing, almost like it was a tabletop, a desk. And we found these little fuzzball sea otters at like a not sea otters, but like brown fuzzballs at a thrift store or something like that, and those represented the sea otters. So
Awesome.
it was fun.
So you said that you made films yourself. What was it like working with somebody else?
Oh, what was it like working with somebody else? Yeah, it's interesting in film and video. Right now, you know, you can do so much as an individual, but you can do a lot more with a crew, with a lot of people. And so, yeah, I've done like little small projects by myself, and projects with 5 people, and projects with a couple dozen people. So it's really cool just to have another set of eyes and a bunch of creative brains and minds in the same room. And I'm always amazed that like when we're talking about like a little script idea or a little creative idea, and you think that it's awesome, and someone else chimes in and says, oh, but what if we do this, or what if we do that? And you go, ah, brilliant, let's do it. So that's great to have that collaboration.
There really is synergy between creative artists, you know, when the focus is a particular project. what are the hard parts about working with other people when you're a filmmaker in your own right and you ultimately, it's not your creative vision,
Sure.
ultimately?
Sure. Let's see. I think that, working on a team, working on a crew, communication is really good. And I think that the types of, especially independent films, independent productions like this one was, you get a chance to be more creative because you're taking on more roles. Mm-hmm. So each person on the crew really had like a slash job, like, editor slash writer, or, behind the scenes camera slash online.
Marketing.
Yeah, marketing. Yeah,
Right.
that kind of thing. And so you can you don't have to be as much of a specialist if you don't want to be. And so you can kind of have a better balance, I think. Like you don't get burned out on just doing one thing if it's really difficult, because there are difficult parts of films, but it's fun for the most part.
What were the difficult parts of this film?
I'd say the most difficult part was dealing with the ocean. So I remember
It's a natural force,
It's amazing. It's like one day you could have everything set and you have 5 cameras set up and 10 people and all this stuff, and you're supposed to film underwater, and then the water's murky. You can't even see like 1 foot in front of you. And you're like, oh, okay. Well, I guess we'll wait another week for this shot.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, and it just comes and goes. It could be totally clear. And we had ace, director of photography who had shot IMAX underwater movies and Free Willy movies and all this, and he could see from like a distance if the water was murky or not. And even with like those kinds of people involved, it was still difficult to get the ocean right. Mm-hmm. I guess. Yeah. So yeah, it was like an unruly cast member on the movie. It would never cooperate. It seemed like.
I'm never working with that one again.
Yeah. And the little cameras that we shot a lot of underwater or near the water, and so we had waterproof housing on the camera, and if you got salt spray on the camera and you left it there, it would like crust up and kind of mess up the housing. So you had this bucket of fresh water that you would douse the camera housing with every time it came up out of the ocean, and you did that, right after it came up, and you had to be really careful about sand. 1 speck of sand on the lens, it'd scratch, and then, it'd take an hour or 2 to get a new lens or to get a new housing or whatever. So all these like little tiny details that you were always thinking of something like that. So that was difficult.
So in the movie, Otter 499 disappears. Have they ever found out what happened to it yet?
Otter 499. 499. Let's see. I don't think that 499 made it. So yeah, I think that there's less than a 50% chance that they'll survive out there. And still people put a lot of time and effort and money into it because they're an icon of the area and they help the environment so much.
So did you form any personal relationships with any of the otters?
No, although I would have liked to. They actually do a pretty nice commute. They move maybe 5-10 miles a day. So if the C Studios, the film production company, was literally based over the ocean. The film was edited over the ocean. It was like this old cannery building that was like
cool.
Literally the tide was coming in. I would be looking out my window and there'd be like waves coming by. It was really cool. So you could actually see sea otters out of your work window, which is cool. But it probably wasn't the same sea otter twice that you would see in the same day. You can't really get close enough to sea otters legally. You can't approach them. They have to come up to you, and that's with all marine animals. We tried to leave them alone as much as we could, but to capture their little characteristics. And they are individuals. They eat different things. They socialize in different ways. So we could see that from afar, but we didn't really get up close as much, unless you're a sea otter handler, which we do have in the movie.
So what is the most interesting thing that you learned about the otters when you were filming?
The most interesting thing I learned about the otters? Ooh, that's a great question. There's so many interesting things. Everyone on the project, and it really was a bigger project. It was like a film, and we did this educational handbook and online media and stuff. everyone on this project kind of had to become a sea otter expert in one way or the other. So we read a couple of books beforehand and learned all sorts of sea otter facts. And
If you had to recommend a sea otter book to people that want to learn more about otters, you got a title?
Sure. I would say what is it called? The Life and Death of Monterey Bay by Palumbi, and he's awesome. And that's a great book. It just kind of talks about the ups and downs of Monterey Bay, where the sea otter kind of headquarters is, and how it's come back from the brink to kind of flourish. So, million hairs per square inch. That's my favorite. On a sea otter, there's up to 1 million hairs per square inch, and that's like vastly more than any other animal with fur, even like a beaver or a little mink or anything like that. Amazing. It's so hard to get. It's actually, you have to have like a special person deliver you a sea otter pelt because it's basically illegal to have one because they're so rare. And you pet this thing, and it's amazing. It's like magic. It's like this weird substance that your hand just like slides off of. It's like a cat squared, you know. It's amazing. So it's really
I love
cool.
Colby's question about what you learned about sea otters, and I'm also curious, what did you learn about filmmaking on this project?
What did I learn about filmmaking? So much. I mean, these guys were, most of the people on the crew had been making films for 10, 20, 30 years, so it was amazing to kind of look over their shoulders. I would say just dealing more with the ocean, the little intricacies of you know, finding a good day to film versus a bad day to film on land is way different than like being in a boat or having to be in the water, that sort of thing. So we were checking the swells. I actually had like a surfing app on my phone, so I could check the swell for the day to see like how big the waves would be. So it would be like a calm day in the boat or like a bumpy day in the boat.
Bumpy day in the boat.
So
right.
that's like a whole different dimension of filmmaking that you don't really think about on a Hollywood soundstage or, you know, in a normal documentary, whatever, on land.
So if people want to learn more about Otter 501, how do they do it? And if people want to learn more about Andrew Burke, filmmaker, how did they do that?
Let's see. Well, Otter 501, there's a Facebook page. Online media is pretty heavily used in the film. And there's actually a way to find out exactly where Otter 501 is and
Awesome.
continuing the story, and they are continuing to post updates as the movie is in theaters and film festivals and stuff. So Otter 501 the movie is a great place. And then you guys can just call me. My phone number is, no, I'm just kidding. A great way to find out more about me, I'm on Vimeo. I have some little short stuff on Vimeo. Let's see, some little stuff on YouTube that I'm tagged on. I'm on Twitter. The Film Fest office here can
They know how to
relay
find
notes. Yeah, so I'm trying to be involved in as much as I can. So.
Well, it's just awesome to have a homeboy here on the set with us. We're really glad you're here. And thanks for coming, and enjoy the rest of the Film Fest. And we hope to see you again with another movie really soon.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks.
There we go.